All right. Hello, hello. Um, Apologies, trying to get stuff set up here. Okay. I think we are good to go. It is Friday, April 10th. We're finally at the end of the week. Thank goodness. Weekend is here. Um, so this is going to cover the news from Thursday, the 9th, to today, Friday, the 10th. For various reasons, I was kind of having a little bit of a tough week. I wasn't able to get these out as quick as I wanted to. But life happens. Uh, Thank you guys for all the support. You help keep me going. So yeah. Anyway, okay. The theme today. I feel like we need to talk more about men and people coded, people who identify as masculine in the U.S. And you may think like this is weird. Why are we talking about this when like this is supposed to be a feminist podcast? Well, remember at the very beginning, I said feminist. The way I use the word feminist is more about equality and equity amongst people, and not so much just like woman, female. I try to be inclusive of all genders, talk about all issues that affect all genders, and a lot of these issues that we'll talk about are affecting men, but there's particular ones, but they're also affecting other people. And also when I talk about men and women, I'm including, and we often do include, unfortunately, when we talk about men, we forget about trans men. Similar thing when we talk about women, we often forget about trans women. Also, even more important, women of color, trans women and men of color, men of color. Um, you know, it's all important. These divisions in many ways, as someone that researches gender, these divisions in many ways are very like arbitrary, and change over time. And we're seeing we need to keep pushing this, but we're seeing more acceptance of like different types of men, different types of women. And I think this is important. But I think it's also important to realize that certain groups have particular struggles that other groups may not. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't care about it. That doesn't mean we ignore them. We talk about all of them, and more importantly, we try to talk about these issues, and I try to relate them to like larger structural issues that we all deal with in our lives, and it may affect different. It definitely affects these systems. Definitely affect different people different ways, and we need to be cognizant of that, but also aware that we are more similar than we are different. So yes, let's talk a little bit about men here. This is specifically. I kind of want to focus on Gen Z men and younger men. So a lot of these stats are specific to men who are like 20 to 30 years old, roughly. So young men, and basically how their prospects, their life prospects, their economic prospects have greatly decreased compared to their fathers, compared to their grandfathers. And we're going to kind of delve into why this is so, and what we can do about it. Have empathy for men, have empathy for people, but also holding people accountable too. And we were able to do this by better understanding how these systems work, and the issues that we're facing, and how we may go about fixing them. Anyway, so this kind of started because I ran across this pretty interesting book called Of Boys and Men. there's a subtitle to this. I forget what it is, but the Of Boys and Men. The author is Michael Reeves. Reeves is spelled Reeves. And this is a fairly new book, I would say, within the past like 2-3 years. Basically, he studies and writes about men, particularly young men, and they're actually within feminism. There is such a thing, and within gender studies, there is male and masculinity studies. We think, oh, the feminists are only worried about women and how to stick it to men. No, that's not the case. Being a feminist and knowing a lot of feminists, I haven't run into too many that are, and usually the ones that are unfortunately kind of toxic on other things. So, feminism's a very broad category, basically. But anyway, I think this is essential. We talk about this stuff. So, if you're interested in this type of research on men and masculinity and like what that means, and how it plays out, check out some of these authors. So I mentioned Michael Reeves. Another big one in the masculinity studies area is Michael Kimmel. Eric Anderson's another one. Michael Kimmel is has his degree, I want to say, in sociology, but does a lot. His professional career is in gender studies, particularly masculinity studies. Eric Anderson is more of like a pure like sociologist that studies men, men and masculinity as like a sociological structure and what that means. But these are just 3 authors. There's so much good stuff out there about men and masculinity. Just Google like masculinity studies or male studies. There's a lot of good stuff there that I think we, especially in the feminist community, kind of overlook or poo-poo in a way, to our detriment, really, honestly. But yeah, we're going to look at some of these stats, particularly from Michael Reeves' book Of Boys and Men here. Okay, so here we go. 80% of suicides are of particularly young men. Again, this is mainly talking about men between 20 and 30 years old. 80% of all the suicides that happen in this country are by boys and men. And this is from the American Institute of Boys and Men. I believe this is Reeves's like research group or his research institute. Another one, 71% of all overdose deaths in this country are boys and men. 68% of all homeless people in America right now are boys and men. 40% of undergrad students in this country right now are boys and men. That's according to the National Center for Education Statistics. Another one, 33% of young men with just a high school diploma are unemployed. Again, this is from Reeves's group and his book. So the other one, gender pay gap is decreasing by, so it's decreased by, the gender pay gap has decreased by 19% over the past few years. Men are still on average making more than women, but keeps shrinking, which is good. We need gender pay equality, right? While the gender pay gap, the average pay between men and women is shrinking, the class pay gap is increasing. So the income of rich, wealthy people, like $1 million plus, compared to like working class people, both men and women, is actually increasing by 12%. So, and I think this just shows, so we're getting closer in certain aspects to gender equality. The issue is now becoming, and we talk about all this all the time, the issue is not between genders so much in certain ways. It's between those who have wealth and those who do not. Again, that's from Reeves's book. An interesting one. So the term toxic masculinity, which is a very controversial term, I understand. And I think it is looking at I'm always interested in the origins of terms, especially terms that come out of academia and stuff, like woke and things like this, that have been, these terms that have been politicized and used to use as weapons in politics. Toxic masculinity is, I think, one of those terms on the left, honestly, in leftist politics. So, you know how like anything that MAGA disagrees with, or like Ron DeSantis or whoever disagrees with, is automatically woke, right? A lot of things that feminists and certain leftists do not like get labeled as toxic masculinity, and like it's just a large umbrella that seems to apply to just about all men, which is not fair, for sure. But anyway, so the origin of that term, it actually came out of the mythopoetic movement in the 1980s, 1990s, which was, so the mythopoetic movement was basically a bunch of like seminars and stuff that different people would put on. Sometimes it was religious based, sometimes it wasn't. But there was kind of this movement. It was more like a therapy movement, right? In response to feminism, where these different men were like, okay, like let's kind of look at ourselves. Let's be introspective of ourselves and our male peers, and how can we better ourselves? So it started out like as a very positive thing in a way. It wasn't so much like an umbrella thing of toxic masculinity. It was, in these seminars and stuff, it was phrased more as, look, there's toxic things in different men, like it kind of antisocial things in different men. Each man needs to go on his own journey to figure out what those are, how to build better relationships with other men, with women, etc. So yeah, originally it was a very like positive thing back in the 80s and 90s. So like actually empowering thing, right? If we think about feminism as empowering women, this mythopoetic movement was a way to empower men. I don't want to say it's different from our modern like idea of the men's rights movements and stuff, but the men's rights movements kind of grew out of this a little bit, right? So anyway, so it's not so much like every man is toxic. It's just like, okay, as each man has different aspects in them that may not be so nice, and like the trick is to identify it and try to like deal with it and whatnot. And so instead of a very like accusatory thing, it was very much just like, okay, reflect on yourself. Honestly, I think any human should do this, right? Reflect on yourself. What are some of the things you want to change about yourself? What are some good things? That's really what started. And it was a purely therapy thing. They did not mention politics. Some of them, depending on the seminar and stuff, some of them mentioned religion, some of them didn't. It was kind of a mixed bag. It was kind of like a loose therapy movement, if I'm to describe what the original thing of toxic masculinity was, the original idea. Sociologist Michael Mesner was the first one, kind of credited at least with one of the first people in academia to really like study this trend and kind of like popularize it more or less in academia. So here you go. This mythopoet movement was very broad, kind of decentralized, but in general, I found this quote here that I think sums it up decently. So mythopoets believed that, and this is according to Michael Messner as he describes this mythopoet movement. He says mythopoets believed that modern urban industrial society, quote, trapped men into straitjackets of rationality, thus blunting the powerful emotional communion and collective spiritual transcendence that they believe men in tribal societies typically enjoyed, unquote. I mean, this makes a lot of sense. Like, you could apply this to modern day, right? These straitjackets society puts on all of us. I would argue that, particularly patriarchy and capitalism put on all of us that men have to act a certain way, and in return, receive, resource benefits and stuff. Women have to act another way so they can receive benefits, and this quote right here, really makes you think, okay, what lies have we been sold, right? Because a lot of these younger men don't have these economic privileges anymore, right? They are doing worse off than their fathers and their grandfathers. So obviously, this mythic idea of industrialized in society and rational society, men will always benefit. No, that's clearly not the case. We're seeing it in real time, and understandably, young men and boys particularly are pissed off about it. And one reaction to that is this complete edgelord cynicism of nothing matters, burn it all to the ground, which kind of in a way is a revolutionary mentality, right? And it's no wonder a lot of young men, the Bernie bros, were so huge. Bernie Sanders was offering, for instance, solutions, at least economic solutions, and then Clinton ended up beating Bernie. So a lot of these people, I mean, I just say this because I understand the reasoning, and I have some sympathy for men were tired of what the Democratic Party had been offering and their complete disbanding of economic issues, disbanding of the working class, and where'd they have to go? I mean, at least Trump was offering some solutions, obviously that were very problematic, were fascist, authoritarian, and honestly, he hasn't carried through. And I think men are finally seeing this, and this is why the MAGA movement is breaking up and falling apart, right? Because people were promised all these things and they were either not fulfilled, or if they were fulfilled, they had consequences that I think a lot of people didn't see or didn't want to happen, but they did. So again, I just feel bad because all politicians do this. They try to use our emotions, our fears, stuff like that. But especially Trump, and how he has tried to brand himself so closely with masculinity and all that stuff, and how completely miserably he has let a lot of these young men and boys down. And again, not to say the Democratic Party is doing really honestly jack shit to really do anything to try and win these voters back, right? Instead of standing up and saying, no, we need to tax the rich. The issue in this country is capitalism primarily, and it hurts all people, and especially more and more young people of all different genders, all different types are realizing this. The Democratic Party is doing jack shit about it, which of course should piss us all off, right? And so we end up in this case of what are, men have these we still have these like outdated patriarchal roles, right? Of like, oh, the man is supposed to be the breadwinner and like support his family and everything like that. You can't economically do that anymore. And now most households, just to survive, each parent has to work, each partner has to work. And so, of course, men are going to feel, weak, and they're going to be like, sad and whatnot, because they're not living up to these ideals that that Trump and others and people in society are trying to project. Even women, hell, I'll even say like allow women, looking for that, again, not all women, but allow women, straight women that I have happened to know, are just like, well, I want to, there's still that mentality, even though like they may not consciously say it, of like, oh, I want to marry a man that will like earn more money so I can just worry about the house and the kids, which no issues. I mean, I'm not blaming that. Like, if you want to live your trad life or whatever, whatever, good for you. I just have a problem where you start trying to tell other people to do it as well. It's your life, live your life, make your own decisions. But this is great. People want to do this, but it's just not economically and financially feasible anymore. And it's just, again, it's this story that we keep being sold, and people are like, oh, why aren't you doing this? Well, when your job only pays you enough to like cover rent, or car insurance or whatever, it doesn't go that far. It's like, it's literally impossible to do, right? So we have all these gender standards, right? But then we have this messed up, like hyper capitalist, greedy society where you're trying to tell all men to do this, where more and more men, and not just men, everybody is falling behind. So again, like it's a complete like cognitive dissonance, right? And people are struggling. And like the real issue, honestly, is like, it's not, again, not like left versus right, men versus women, whatever. It's the top versus the bottom. It's economics. Like James Carville, who ran Bill Clinton's presidential campaign, like his top thing, he would always say, it's the economy, stupid. It's the economy. It's the economy. It's the economy. It's the disgusting wealth distribution, the fucked up wealth distribution system that we live in, where like all the gains and wealth and stuff like that are going to, the top 1% mostly. And then we get the crumbs left. This is why unions are so important. Use this, we need to come up with like solutions, right? For men and all genders, honestly, but like a role for men where they can use these tendencies, these ways of being that they've been taught in like productive ways. So like, join unions, run unions, join, political movements, get involved with your community, run for a local office, like, to me, that's where the energies need to be directed, right? Hell, go work at soup kitchens, keep looking for jobs. Like, this is the other thing too, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but like this idea of jobs being coded as different genders, like is ridiculous. Like, do you know how badly, and this was even when I was like back in undergrad years ago, but like how badly male elementary school teachers are to find. It's crazy, and I think part of it's like these gender expectations of like, oh, men don't want to do these jobs, or oh, women don't want to do these jobs. I think also part of it, I think a bigger part of it, honestly, is the pay. It's that a lot of teachers get paid shit no matter what they do, because we devalue education so much in this country. But anyway, last thing on this point. So this Michael Reeves has this concept of so you know what STEM jobs are: science, technology, engineering, math, and how like there's been a big push to get more women in STEM. Well, Michael Reeves believes there's another sector um, that's growing even faster than STEM right now in our country is called HEAL, which stands for Health, Education, Administration, and Literacy. So basically, think like doctors, nurses, teachers, uh, counselors, therapists, stuff like that. Like these jobs are overwhelmingly, and I know because I work in uh, I work in a social work job. These are overwhelmingly women often in these roles, and I think it's to the detriment because like there's male children, there's male, it's just like there's male patients, and so I'm not saying that like a male patient can't relate to a female patient, but like we need some gender parity. And I think honestly, I think the big part of this is how it's growing, thankfully, but like how shitty the pay is for like a lot of these heel jobs, and maybe by getting more men into them, sadly, because of patriarchy, stuff like that, getting more men into these jobs may actually be what's required to boost the income for a lot of these like necessary jobs. There's also like a whole thing. I think there's also a larger thing of like critique of capitalism, right? Of like capitalism tries to commodify everything and like assign a value to everything. But how do you like assign a value to, being a mother, like taking care of people, educating children? Oh, it doesn't create, more capital. But it's just like, look, these jobs are even more important, honestly, than being a mother, being a father, being, a teacher, a healthcare worker is a hell of a lot more valuable than being a banker, honestly, than being like a capitalist, you know. Um, so we need all this, and men. All of this is to say, men, I like understand your predicament in many ways, and a lot of our issues are related, and it all comes back again to capitalism, to uncontrolled capitalism. The patriarchy. The patriarchy hurts everyone because it tells men they have to be a certain way, women they have to be a certain way, and then anybody that's not a man or a woman, fuck you, you don't exist, basically. So it's all damaging systems, and I think more and more people are waking up to this. Young men are realizing that this is ridiculous. These dreams that they've been sold are a complete lie, and we have to make our own futures, right? We really do, because no one else is going to do it for us. So instead of trying to fight each other, right, left, men, women, the real division is we need solidarity. We need to organize against the capitalist class, against those who have all the wealth, against the politicians that vote for these wealthy people all the time. Again, I don't give a shit if they're Republican, Democrat, whatever. This is hurting all of us. We need to have more solidarity, and more coming together. That's the only way we're going to bring about the change that we need. All right. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go on to the news. So entertainment news. I told you about how there was a wireless concert in London. I guess it happens every year. It's not happening this year because apparently the UK has banned Ye from coming and performing. So Ye was apparently the headline, show for this concert. Now that he's not able to go, they just canceled the concert. in the UK said they banned him because of his various anti-Semitic comments that he's made. This was according to the Hollywood Reporter. BTS officially launched their world tour. It was like Wednesday or Thursday, I want to say, probably Thursday. So yeah, BTS is back and they're performing all around the world. Africa Bambaataa, who was a big time, one of the big time hip hop artists in like the 80s. He really like helped set what the genre of hip hop and whatnot. He died this week. Rest in peace. That was according to Reuters. It was announced also this week that Pink is going to host the Tony Awards this year. So yeah, good for her. Selena Gomez is making her directorial debut for the last season of Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, a spinoff of Wizards of Waverly Place, which Selena, that's kind of where she got her got famous from, more or less. So yeah, good for her. Good for her. We need more, we need more gender parity, behind the camera as well as in front. So yeah, best of luck to her. That was according to E. What else? Some sports stuff. Jim Whittaker, who was the first American to climb Mount Everest, dies this week. Unfortunately, he was like 90-something year old. So again, rest in peace. That was according to the BBC. So I didn't know this existed until this week. I was looking at some different football clips, American football clips, but apparently there's a women's version of the NFL called the Women's National Football Conference. I was watching some of their stuff, and I like watching American football, right? Not my favorite sport, but I grew up in America in the Midwest, So yeah. And actually I played football for a year or two. Wasn't totally my cup of tea, but it's an interesting sport for sure. Anyway, there's a women's National Football Conference. They are kind of like the female version of the NFL. They've been in existence for 4 or 5 seasons now. And they're growing, and I was watching it and like, damn, like some of those women for sure could play in the NFL. Like there is some real talent out there. So I guess the top team in that is I'm not sure exactly what town they're from, but the Texas Spartans. I was watching one of their games. Yeah, they had some real talent, but there's like 6 or 7 teams now. I think the season is going on right now. So if NFL's done, you're looking for other American football to watch, look up the Women's National Football Conference. Dude, those ladies are legit for sure. So the PDC, I think it's the Professional Dart Championship or Corporation or something. They're based in UK. They banned a trans dart player. Again, being in the UK, like sadly, this does not surprise me at all. This is unacceptable. Again, I always say let athletes compete. Like let them compete. End of story. So this was a BBC story I was reading. So there was this basically anti-trans group. There's so many of them. It's hard to keep track of. There's this anti-trans advocacy group in the UK called Sex Matters that for whatever reason, the BBC went to as the expert, again, that just shows you how like transphobic the BBC and like UK media is right now. It's really sad, but we have a lot of trans people fighting around the world against, we call it in the trans and feminist community, we call it TERF Island right now. So the trans exclusive radical feminists, we're fighting for trans rights. I know and listen to some trans Brits. Dude, they are hardcore. They're pushing. This is ridiculous. And both major parties do it. The Tories, the conservatives, are obviously, I mean, they're like, like the Republican Party here. They're all like racist and everything else. But even like kind of the left party, the Labor Party, which is the like kind of the ruling party right now, has a lot of anti-trans shit going on. Keep fighting, call out this bullshit, make it public. This is ridiculous. Again, let athletes compete. That's all they want to do. Just let them compete. So anyway, I thought this was kind of revealing. So the BBC, in response to this banning, to be fair, they did talk to the trans athlete, who again just said was basically blindsided by this, had been in professional darts for years, but now is like effectively retired, for no reason other than being trans. Anyway, so the Sex Matters group says, quote, men's physical advantages in darts may be small, but they all add up, which I don't know. That made me laugh. That's so revealing. Like, okay, one, not all trans people are men. Like, that's the whole fucking point of like trans femme and trans women, is that they aren't. And so that's the first false premise. The second one is physical advantages. Like, anybody on hormones, honestly, like I've seen it in myself, you lose a lot of muscle mass. You lose a lot of strength. And then it's just like, okay, darts, really? Like, I don't want to say it's not a sport. It is, at least in my book, but it's just like, how much strength does it really take to throw a dart like a couple meters? Just ridiculous. Like, it's clearly these people have no idea about like how darts works, apparently. But anyway, and then this last part was probably the first part that got me, was the advantages may be small, but they all add up. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't know. It's clearly like total misunderstanding of gender, total misunderstanding of like what matters in darts. Just complete transphobia. They're just, the shotgun method, just throw anything you can and see what sticks. So yeah, this is ridiculous. It's clearly the old boys club getting afraid because some trans is maybe beating them, which, as far as I know, like, this athlete wasn't like, I mean, she was in the league, but like, I don't know how successful she was. I'd have to look, but yeah, it's just asinine. Just another asinine thing. Here was an interesting one. So the football club, soccer club, Nottingham Forest in Britain, tied with Porto. Porto, I believe, is a soccer club in Portugal. I may be wrong. All the Porto fans like yell at me, correct me, please. Anyway, they ended up tying because Porto had a 45-yard own goal. So basically, one of the Porto defenders tried to pass the ball back and like passed it all the way back into his own goal. So that tied the game. And then with this tie, Nottingham Forest goes on, first time in 40 years, they advanced to a European tournament semifinal. So I'm like, wow, what a way to make history, I guess. Okay, actually, speaking of the NFL, the DOJ started an investigation into the NFL for anti-competitive practices. That's according to Reuters. Good for them. The NFL, NBA, MLB, all of these major sports leagues are monopolies. Don't let them try to convince you otherwise. They are monopolies. They are, they actively stifle out competition. This is why these other leagues like the UFL, stuff like that, will go for like a season and then disappear. A lot of it's because of the NFL. So yeah, this is good, and also they control like what teams can enter and what can't. It's just literal, like, you want to see a good example of an oligarchy, right? Look at professional sports, seriously. So good for the DOJ investigating the NFL. Um, Pittsburgh Penguins, the NHL team in Pittsburgh, makes the playoffs. After they've been out of the playoffs for 3 years, which may surprise some people because like Sidney Crosby plays for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but they've had some issues. They're finally back in the playoffs. They won one of the last wild card spots to do that. Good for them. Adidas loses the contract to make Champion League, the soccer balls. Apparently, they've been making these soccer balls for the Champions League for like 25 years, but now they are now they aren't. So that's according to the Financial Times. Not sure who is making them. I would have to look that up. But anyway, here's a positive sports one here. So yeah, and I realize this is a little dated, but USA Rugby, so the governing body of rugby in America, has created an open gender division for trans athletes. That's according to Fox News. So like that's good. I mean, the more solutions we can get to get more athletes to compete, the better. So yeah, good for them. I played rugby in college. I love it. Rugby is definitely one of my favorite all-time sports. It's basically like my top sports are basically like rugby, hockey, ice hockey, and mixed martial arts. So yeah, good for them. Actually showing solutions to how to actually fix quote unquote fairness in sports and everything. Yeah. Science and tech. So a few hours ago, Orion landed, which is the actual like capsule that the astronauts who were circling around the moon in the Artemis 2 finally landed off the coast of San Diego. I actually watched it on TV. It was pretty cool. They land, so that was a successful mission. So now NASA is saying that that with this success, they are trying to send up rockets now, like every like 3 or 4 months now. The next one they're going to send up, I guess Artemis 3, it's just going to go up to the International Space Station, work on docking, and then I guess after that, Artemis 4 is going to make another moon landing, actually, if all goes well. So good for NASA. This is a win for the world, a needed win for the world, because the astronauts were a mix of Americans and Canadians. Also, the Europeans, they were saying the Europeans built the actual rocket part on the pod that was propelling it in space. So it was like really a world effort in many ways. This is good. This is why we need public funding for NASA. It looks like Trump has said that he wants to send more funding to NASA. So like that's good. Again, it's not just one person that's going to do this. It's not just going to be one rich person that does this. It's a group effort, and and it's a win. A lot of crucial research that all countries will use. So yeah, here's one. Like, don't laugh. When I first read this, I kind of chuckled. It's actually kind of sad, but chlamydia is killing the koala population off. Apparently, I guess chlamydia was a thing. This was primarily in Australia, and this was according to the BBC. So, like, something like 80%, almost 90% of all koala populations in Australia um, have chlamydia or have like died from it. So like where here in humans, it just kind of causes an annoyance and infections. It's actually fatal for koalas. Chlamydia was like natural, I guess, more or less to Australia and koalas, but it was only made worse. It only mutated and became worse when, again, Westerners brought their pigs and stuff like that. Europeans, basically made it worse. So koalas have been struggling with that, especially recently. And this article was saying that scientists have found this koala population on, was it Kangaroo Island, one of the islands off of Australia, that hasn't been affected by chlamydia. So now they're trying to do basically a breeding program so they can get more genetic diversity, so chlamydia won't be as lethal, hopefully not, to koalas. So best of luck there. This was another one. This was according to the AP, kind of interesting. So the oldest octopus that we know of, like, it's 30,000 years old, give or take. I think it's in a museum in London. It was actually found off in Lake Michigan, just off the coast of Chicago there. It's only about the size of a hand, right? And it looks like an octopus. Well, it turns out anthropologists were doing more research. Turns out it's actually not an octopus. It is a nautilus. A nautilus is octopus and cuttlefish are all all cephalopods. So they're all related. But basically the big thing with nautilus is they're kind of like those weird shell things that just like go around in the ocean. So it's kind of like a pre-octopus in a way. It's kind of like an octopus that still has its shell, right? It has propulsion and stuff like that. So anyway, so it's actually a nautilus, which is kind of interesting, and it just shows you like how similar cephalopods have been to each other, like how similar anatomically and whatnot they've been. Okay. More than half of the U.S. is in drought right now after a record-breaking hot March. That's according to the Financial Times. Sadly, doesn't surprise too many people. But yeah, so that's great. Here's an interesting one. So there was a research done recently at the University of Texas hospital in Houston. They basically did this research to see, different things to help prevent Alzheimer's. One of the things they found was giving, again, this was senior citizens. So like the participants in the study were 65 and older, but the participants that got a higher dose of flu vaccine also seemed to decrease the risk of Alzheimer's in half, which is kind of crazy. Obviously, a lot more research needs to be done on this, but maybe one more reason why vaccines are actually good. Anyway, that was according to Fox News. China has started mass producing humanoid robots. So, like, could be cool, could be bad, who knows? That was also according to Fox News. All right, let's go on to political stuff here. So, world news. Have to start with the Middle East, of course, because the Middle East is still on fire. So the ceasefire is still tenuous. There's still a ceasefire, but like the Strait of Hormuz is still basically blocked. Israel, more importantly, Israel is still bombing the shit out of Lebanon, which is understandably irritating Iran. But they're going into ceasefire talks on Saturday. J.D. Vance is apparently leading the U.S. delegation. We'll see what happens. Again, Israel is trying its hardest to fuck things up. Apparently, like I had mentioned on Wednesday that apparently like Israel and Lebanon are now in talks, but like of course that doesn't stop the genocidal colonial state of Israel from still bombing the shit out of them. So yeah, this may actually be a case of Israel, going against and ruining foreign policy. Again, not that like Trump isn't doing that by himself, right? Not that the U.S. isn't doing that by themselves, but Israel is not helping. One more reason why we need a total separation from Israel, why we need to get out of the Middle East. So yeah. Here's another one. So when I find out I'm wrong or need to be corrected on something, I have to like jump on it and apologize and correct myself. So I had talked about right before the Iran war, there was there were these protests, right? Well, it turns out that, and this is kind of old news, but New York Times and other places reported this, that actually Mossad and the CIA were basically the big instigators of these protests. Sadly, this doesn't surprise me, knowing the history of the CIA, how shady they are, and how shady Mossad is, which Mossad is basically the Israeli version of the CIA. Yeah. So, like, turns out these protests weren't totally grassroots, and sadly, this doesn't surprise me, especially in the Middle East. This is not to say that there aren't real freedom, real Iranians fighting for freedoms and stuff like that. But we got to be careful, right? Because some of these protests are actually encouraged by the U.S. and Israel in order to destabilize the country. Obviously, they didn't work because we still bombed them anyway. So like this soft power shit doesn't work ultimately. So anyway, I have to be clear and like transparent on that, and we gotta be careful, right? Because oftentimes with protests, it happens here in this country, all over. You gotta kind of be careful, right? Because there are such things as paid agitators. A lot of them work for the CIA, right, or FBI or law enforcement. But you have to be very, very careful. Again, I'm not saying like protesting's huge. Go hit the streets. There's real people, real energy, but you got to be careful. About who's trying to start violence. I actually did a course, so not this past No Kings, but the one before. I was actually, funny enough, I was in Nashville actually learning. It was an urban survival course, very interesting. And they were part of this training. We were actually at the No Kings because we were talking about how, like, who are the people you should watch out for that may commit violence, and some of the, dirty tactics and stuff they do. As a protester, like, I thought it was super cool. It was really helpful in like how to keep myself safe in protests. But yeah, you always got to be aware of your surroundings and of the media, like who is telling you what and why. Always stay skeptical. Okay, I already mentioned this. The AP reported Netanyahu authorizes direct talks with Lebanon, yet Israel is still bombing Lebanon. So again, just completely, Israel is just completely disingenuous. Hopefully it doesn't derail the Iran talks, but the way it's going, it's not looking good. All right, let's move on to Europe. So Vladimir Putin calls a ceasefire for Easter, for Orthodox Easter. That's according to the BBC. So at least we got another ceasefire, right? Whatever it takes, right? I guess. But it's a temporary thing, so I'm sure that Russia will be back at it soon. The EU officially instituted their biometric data for all travelers traveling through the EU. So now that means that if you're traveling to the EU, not only will they get your passport information, they'll take your fingerprints. They're doing other stuff too. Maybe a retina scan. I'm not sure, but they're taking more information, more ways the state is trying to track you. It's not just in the US. It's in Europe too, so be aware of that. I would have to look into like the rights of travelers and stuff on if there's ways to kind of get around this. I will have to do some more digging. I will get back to you. But yeah, just be aware that's happening now. OpenAI pauses their big data center that they were building in the UK due to energy costs and regulations. Oh wow! Like someone's actually standing up to these big tech companies. Like good for them. Like a lot of what the UK is doing internet wise, not a big fan of, but like this is one good thing. OpenAI is pausing it. Who knows if they'll scrap it or what will happen. But anyway, that's kind of noteworthy. That was according to the BBC. The North Sea oil, that's mainly oil from Russia, hits record prices. I read this yesterday on Thursday. That's according to the Financial Times, because like it's getting hard to get oil out of the Middle East. So other regions are trying to have to pick up the slack. So the North Sea, also like West Texas, has like single-handedly been like bolstering the U.S. oil market. So yeah, which is just scary. One more, it's just like we need to ditch fossil fuels, public transportation, renewable energy. Anyway. NATO is currently split over whether the U.S. can access European bases. Like if it was me, I would say no. Like the U.S. has bases everywhere anyway. Like why does the U.S. need to access European bases other than to like further the U.S. empire war machine? So that was according to the Financial Times. EU, speaking of highest prices for Northern Sea oil, EU has increased oil from Russia like significantly, of course, because of the war in Iran. That was from the Financial Times. Okay, some news from Asia. Excuse me. India proposes rules to go after content creators as broadcasters. This is according to the BBC. Like if this isn't an attack of free speech, I don't know what is. Like there's, in my mind, there's a difference between like having internet access as a public utility, like TV, radio, stuff like that. But like there's a line between that and like trying to regulate speech. Obviously, India is not America, but like India used to be, at least not under Modi. Right now, the crazy right-wing Hindu Vata government. Um, so it's just, another, I think another loss for another concern for people who are concerned about free speech online. We'll see how exactly this plays out, how the enforcement goes, but it's something to be aware of. That's according to the BBC. Now, like, this is the other question, right? What if you're like in America, for instance, and you're broadcasting into India? Will India try to control your speech? Maybe. I mean, we've seen in Europe, in UK, for instance, they have tried. They've been trying very hard to control speech from American creators who broadcast in the UK. So it's just it affects all of us. You know, again, whether you're in India or not, free speech online is being taken away like step by step, and like we should be concerned. There are ways to keep the internet safe. I say this all the time. There are ways to keep the internet safe, but this is not one way to do it. If you want to find actual solutions that work, again, Electronic Frontier Foundation is a good group. It's a good advocacy group for free speech online and other internet rights that we all have. And they actually have actual proposals that would help keep the internet safer and increase speech. Another person I always talk about, Taylor Lorenz. She's a journalist. She primarily focuses on like internet pop culture stuff. She also has a lot of really good takes on this. And she has a YouTube channel. Just look up Taylor, like put in Taylor Lorenz, in Google or YouTube, you'll find her. North Korea and China are in talks with each other. China has said they're going to support North Korea more. Like what that means, exactly how that plays out, we don't know. They're in talks to try to figure that out. That's according to the AP. With this war in the Middle East, major airports in China and India seek hub status. So like, for instance, how like, for instance, O'Hare Airport in Chicago is the hub, is like the headquarters of United, and like Atlanta is the hub or like headquarters for Delta. Basically, some of the larger airports in China and in India are trying to do this, are trying to lure airlines away from the Middle East because it is like so dangerous in the Middle East, right? So we'll see how this works out. That was according to the Financial Times. Benin, the country of Benin, is having national elections on Sunday. So we'll see what happens with that. Actually, there's several nations having national elections on Sunday, but Benin is one of them. Kenya is disputing the UN's investigations into sexual assaults by Kenyan soldiers who were deployed by the UN in Haiti for like peacekeeping purposes. Sadly, this happens a lot. I think a lot of it's due to just the very like incoherent structure of UN blue helmets. They're called blue helmets because they wear blue, and basically the UN pays soldiers from different countries to go on missions for them, like peacekeeping missions or whatever. Well, often the issue often is that the UN sets the mission, right? Like the broader mission, but it's up to the individual units from these countries to actually execute it. And like, there's been a lot of successful missions, I will say, that the UN has done, but there's also been a lot of like major abuses, like sexual assaults, different things like that. So we'll see. This UN investigation is ongoing. Of course, Kenya is going to have their say. I hope there's some reparations to the survivors of this. because it's bad enough being in a country like Haiti where everyday violence is so common, and there's gang violence in the US, like Haiti dropping US made bombs and all types of crazy stuff. Then on top of it, you have these foreign soldiers come in and allegedly sexually assault people. It's just sad. It's just it's wherever there's chaos. It makes it so easy for like war crimes and stuff to happen. So I'll keep up with that. Okay. Let's get into a little like economics here, finance stuff. So African countries like Nigeria, a lot of African countries are in deep, deep debt to places like the IMF, the World Bank, European countries, all these like first world countries, because basically, they were colonies, and then the Europeans left and stole all their resources. So it's just like, what are you going to do now? Anyway, these African countries have rebuilt. Well, where do they get the money? Where do they get the resources? From the colonists who colonized them, right? Or through these international institutions that were set up by the colonists, essentially. But anyway, Africa, a lot of these African countries, especially like like Western countries in Africa, have major debt because they take out loans from, these European countries, stuff like that, and can't pay them back or struggle to pay them back. So now they're always looking for ways to try to pay off their debt, right? One interesting thing that they're turning to now, these countries, is they're using, it's called a total return swap. Basically, it's a derivative. So a derivative is basically you make a bet that a certain asset will be a certain price in the future. So like derivatives on stocks are really huge. So like you buy a derivative, right, of let's say Caterpillar, just for instance, and you're basically saying, okay, I want 100 shares, or I'm betting that 100 shares of Caterpillar will be at this price. And if it's at that price, then you get paid. If it's not at that price, if it actually goes down, then you owe money. So it's a very like get rich or go broke quickly scheme. That's why derivatives are so like dangerous to do. Plus, they often move so fast and they're traded so fast it's hard to keep up with. But anyway, so these total return swaps are a particular type of derivative. So what happens is, let's say Nigeria, the government of Nigeria goes to an investment firm or a bank and says, hey, this particular resource, let's just say gold, for instance, we're going to say this gold is going to be at this price, is going to go up to this price in a month. And so what the contract basically is Nigeria does this. And instead of being like a, I think it will be at this price. And then when it hits that price, you get paid in a lump sum, or you have to pay out in a lump sum. Instead, it's like payments over time, essentially. So Nigeria says, hey, this investment bank says, hey, I think gold is going to be at this price in a month. The bank or investment firm or whatever will actually pay Nigeria that money in installments. Right. So it's a way to get cash quickly, essentially. Problem is, if it turns out if it's in a month and gold isn't at that price, then Nigeria owes all this money back, right? So it's a very, very risky investment. But like a lot of these West African countries, a lot of these African countries are so much in debt that they're just like, we have to find some way to keep our country solvent. And it's just another form of exploitation. So instead of just actually like letting Nigeria profit off of or like control its own resources, this is just another way of like how how the rich and like first world countries take advantage of these newer countries, of these more like destitute countries. It's it's disgusting. Again, like if we were actually serious about this, we would be investing money in these countries, saying, "Hey, build your own businesses, control your own resources." But of course, we can't do that. So, yeah, wonderful little thing in capitalism and colonialism and how they all work together. Anyway, that was according to the Financial Times. I also had to look up, to be fair, I had to look up what total return swaps were. I looked that up on Investopedia. If there's ever any finance term or like economic term you don't know, Investopedia is like a really, really great resource. Okay. Let's see. Let's move to the Americas here. Daniel Vaquero, who was the former head of Banco Master in Brazil, just got caught by the Brazilian government of committing fraud, essentially. And this is not only is this a huge fraud case, but it's also a potential issue because Daniel Vaquero was also like making, with this fraud money, was making payments to different politicians and like Bolsonaro's government and also other like Brazilian governments in order to, curry favors and whatnot. So this could potentially this could potentially put potential Brazilian elections in question, which it should. Again, like money and politics go so hand in hand, not just in this country, but all around the world. Hopefully that goes out, and hopefully all the information comes out so Brazilians can actually make decisions with the most information. And again, it's just, crony capitalism, capitalist politics, happens everywhere. This story was from Reuters. A miner in Mexico was actually found in a flooded tunnel after 2 weeks. This person is still alive, thankfully. They found him. That's kind of crazy that he survived. Assuming it's a he, or this person's a he, survived in a tunnel, like partially flooded tunnel for 2 weeks. That's wild. Best of luck to that person and their family. They finally got saved. That was according to the Associated Press. Argentina is easing glacier protections. So basically that just means apparently they have a libertarian president. So if that gives you any idea. So apparently Argentina is now expanding drilling into glacier areas. So like the south part of the country, not as if the glaciers were already melting and we were having issues with climate change and extractivism. So yeah, that's great. That's from the Associated Press. The Supreme Court of Brazil has postponed its decision on Rio, I guess the Rio province, on how they pick a governor. So yeah, that's great. Now they're going to not have a governor for a while. So legal limbo. That's wonderful. That's not gonna like piss voters off at all and like make them, diminish their faith in the electoral system. But anyway, hopefully that gets resolved quickly. That was from the Associated Press. Venezuela, a couple different things from Venezuela here. So Venezuela approves opening mining to foreign companies. So again, just more extractivism. How much of this money, is going to end up back in Venezuela? Who knows? It's yet to be seen. But yeah, so the supposed left-wing government that's in charge of Venezuela is turning pretty like right, pretty capitalist, which is concerning. That was according to the Associated Press. There were, I think, unrelated to this, but there's been general protests in Venezuela for a long time, especially after the U.S. illegally invaded and captured their president. There's been massive protests. And there was a massive protest that I guess was headed to the presidential palace this week. Cops stopped that. So, for what it's worth, that was according to the Associated Press. Canada is seeking to join the UK, Japan, and Italy in a new fighter jet project. Those friendly Canadians. They're part of the colonizers too, part of empire as well. See what happens with that. That was from the Financial Times. President Sheinbaum, president of Mexico, came out. She does like daily talks, like public talks, presenting what her, the Modera party, her political party is doing. They are rolling out universal health services. So this is wonderful. Universal health care is one step closer in Mexico. Apparently, they already have like 2 state-run systems, but the state-run systems are more for like direct payments to hospitals and stuff like that. So this is good. So part of this universal health services is it's supposed to bring these different systems together. They're starting with like 60 people, 65 and over, and then they're going to work their way down, which is the exact opposite of what the U.S. has been doing with Medicaid, how they've been started at 65 and are working the age up. So again, our neighbors in the South have the right idea. We need to, solidarity, and like we need to be doing this in this country, And honestly, to be fair, like Bernie Sanders has said this for a long time. He's just like, look, getting universal health care isn't that hard. Like we just need to keep lowering the age of Medicare. And Mexico's actually doing it now, which is awesome. I guess that's going to start April 18th. So it didn't immediately take effect, but it was announced. That was according to the website, the Deep Dive .ca, a Canadian like news website. Okay, let's get to U.S. stuff here. Congress. The House of Representatives had a pro forma session, which just basically means like they were scheduled to be off, but then they were called back to debate a couple things. There wasn't anything significant that came out of this, but the House Democrats were trying to bring a war powers resolution, which would basically just say that like what Trump is doing in Iran is terrible and we don't approve of it. Of course, Republicans shut down the session before the Democrats could bring that. Surprise, surprise. I guess at least Democrats are trying to do something. But when Trump's party controls Congress, or even barely, like the House Republicans don't have that much of a majority, honestly. That was disappointing, but it was kind of positive that like at least some Dems are kind of fighting to end this nonsense from the White House. So that was according to Reuters. There's a couple Congress people that are want an investigation into Polymarket. Polymarket is one of the political betting sites. They want to investigate Polymarket because there are some bets that the war in Iran would basically end, and they were basically placed like right before the ceasefire was announced, like minutes before. So again, it was very shady, like almost like insider trading stuff. It's wild how like sports betting and like politics betting and stuff like that is becoming so fucked up, like stock trading with like insider trading and stuff like that. But greed is a powerful thing, I guess. Okay, White House. Melania did a press conference Thursday, specifically on the Epstein case, that whole thing. Basically, she denied any connection to Epstein because there had been talks about from the House investigative panel about like possibly bringing her in and questioning her, which they should. Again, they should. Like any like rich or powerful person that like was even loosely affiliated with Epstein, Melania mainly through Donald Trump, should be questioned at the very least. But again, she says, oh, that's not necessary. I wasn't connected to that. But then she also said that like we need more hearings for the survivors. So, I mean, that's good. Like the more we hear from the survivors, the more we learn, the better, the more things get out, more information gets out. But it was just kind of funny how like this was clearly like her trying to hedge it by like, oh, don't look at me, look at the survivors, which is like, yes, look at the survivors. The survivors are important, but like you were, whether you want to accept it or not, like you were associated with this too. Albeit probably indirectly, but still. But again, it's just the White House trying to push away accountability as usual. This was another one. So again, I don't agree with much of what this White House does, but I thought this was probably pretty good. The White House staff was told not to place bets on prediction markets. I bet it was some of the staffers in the White House who were making those shady poly market bets. Like this should be a no-brainer. Like this is again similar to like all these insider trading things that Congress people do. It's ridiculous. Like politicians should not have like stock. They shouldn't be involved in anything prediction because of how much power they have. So I'll give the White House a rare win on that one. We'll see how effective that is, though. That was according to the BBC. Another thing that we learned that the Trump budget is trying to cut, again, this proposed budget that the OMB put out, what was it, like last week? Trump, again, for his second year in a row, is trying to slash funding to tribal colleges and universities. Again, anybody that's already vulnerable and marginalized, like let's make them more vulnerable and marginalized. So again, we'll see what happens. This was just the White House proposed it. Now Congress has to actually like sit down and do the budget. So we'll see what happens. Funny enough, DHS funding still hasn't happened because now the Republicans can't agree on a DHS funding. Remember how they're just like, oh, we're going to separate ICE and Border Patrol and create their own separate funding things, but we'll fund the rest, the other 90% of DHS. Well, now they can't even do that because the Republicans can't agree on how that should go. So yeah, that's wonderful. Just, continuation of ICE in airports. Just ridiculous. Okay. That was just according to the Associated Press, but also you can look at the actual budget proposal on the OMB's website. The Office of Management and Budget is basically like kind of like the HR department, more or less, of the White House executive branch. I think it's just omb.gov, I believe. They have it on there. Here's a kind of positive one. The American Library Association and the American Federation of States and County Municipal Employees settled a lawsuit with the Trump administration to restore funding to the Institute, a museum, and Library Sciences. So that's a federal agency. Primarily, they write grants to libraries. So your local library, like they are the ones that are writing federal grants, sending federal money to your libraries. So that's good. Again, this is a great example of like how if you just challenge Trump, like how easily he caves. So good for them. We need to keep this up. Libraries are so important. Information, we're in the information age. Information is power, right? The more you know, the more power you have. Not always, but a lot of cases. Okay, speaking of the OMB and other fucked up shit that they're doing, so the OMB has proposed a rule that it wants to take health, like private sensitive health information on federal employees from the health insurance companies. So the federal government is in, the Obamacare marketplace. Basically, that was borrowed from the federal government, right? So the federal government, like my dad used to work for the federal government, so I know quite a bit about this. So federal government employees have always had this choice of which insurance companies to go with. And then there's a certain number of insurance companies, just like the Obamacare, the healthcare market, healthcare.gov marketplaces. You go on there, you see the different plans, and then you kind of pick one, and then the federal government pays them, for your health insurance. So because of this arrangement, the OMB is claiming since these are federal employees that work for them, they should have all their information. Like, why the fuck does the OMB want to know, like, if a federal employee has had cancer treatment or whatever? It's awfully shady, honestly. It really is. Like, why do they want this information, type of thing? And just because you work for the federal government, all your privacy, all your most private, like, things are now subject. I mean, this is so Big Brother, like fascist. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. This is a proposed rule, so it hasn't taken effect. There's still time to comment and fight back against this. Federal Registrar .gov. You can find a lot of this information. You can actually, write letters to the OMB or whatever that say, this is unacceptable. This was according to the KFF Health News. The KFF Health is like a it's kind of like a healthcare rights group, advocacy group. So yeah, let's move on to court stuff. Supreme Court still out of session, or they're in session, but they're like, meeting, having conferences and stuff amongst the justices. Abbott Labs, which is they make a lot of baby formula, infant formula, has settled a $53 million lawsuit with several families who bought, I guess, this preterm infant formula, which turned out to give these infants like there's like gastrointestinal diseases or issues. So yeah, that's wonderful. At least somebody's kind of being held accountable. That was according to Reuters. Meta, not surprising, Meta pulls ads that seek pulls social media ads that is advertising to try to get more plaintiffs to like sue Meta and social media. Again, not surprising, but unfortunate. This is why like breaking these companies up is so important. Why the internet should be a public good. We should have access. And if you want to join a lawsuit against social media, like you should be able to, So anyway, that was according to Reuters. This was another positive one. A federal district court judge blocks the DOJ from seizing voter data in Massachusetts. So that's a win for all voters in Massachusetts, for all even registered people, Trump can't get your data. Thank you. This is why it's so important we stand up to all this ridiculous voter nonsense, that voter suppression that Trump and the White House are trying to do. That was according to the AP. Here's another pretty good one. Live Nation, who is the biggest ticket provider for like concerts and stuff in the country, is in an antitrust suit now with 34 states. So 34 states have called Live Nation a monopoly. Yes, it is. This is why antitrust is so important. We need to take these businesses to court to break them up, because monopolies hurt consumers, they hurt employers, or they hurt employees, and it just benefits the people that own the companies. So we need more of this. This is good. Thankfully, a lot of state attorney generals are finally like stepping up and saying, no, this is unacceptable. Honestly, we need federal action. We just do. So that was from the Associated Press. The Supreme Court there is one Supreme Court thing. So the Supreme Court declined to hear a case from a candidate who, I guess this candidate was a registered Democrat, had run in some Democratic primaries, and then he like tried to run in a Republican primary. The Ohio Secretary of State removed him from the ballot because, this guy was kind of a dum-dum. Like, he publicly said and put it on social media, "Oh, I'm a Democrat trying to run in a Republican primary." Honestly, my gut reaction is like, let him. Like, voters aren't that stupid, especially, maybe some are, but like, especially a lot of primary voters are pretty like politically knowledgeable and can sniff this out pretty quickly, especially if the candidate in question is just like, hey guys, I'm a Democrat that's trying to throw off a Republican primary vote. So it's just like, I don't know. You can go back and forth. Like, is this a type of fraud, like election fraud, that like states should be stepping in? Honestly, like a lot of stuff, I kind of truly believe like voters are smart enough to figure this stuff out and would like not vote for this person, but it is what it is. The Supreme Court has declined to hear it. So, looks like this candidate will be off the ballot in the Republican primary, at least. Anyway, that was according to Fox News. Here's a wonderful one. Shouldn't surprise us, but again, this shows you how this works. White supremacy and everything works. So the Louisiana GOP, the governor and a couple like House members and whatnot, are trying to eliminate an Orleans parish clerk. So a parish in Louisiana is equal to a county in every other state. It's just the name difference. So anyway, the Louisiana GOP, led by their Republican governor, is trying to eliminate a political position, which is a county court, a county seat, which is the clerk of criminal courts. So a clerk of courts is actually more like, honestly, it's more of like a secretarial thing, but they have control of the courts. Why are they trying to take this away? Because God forbid an ex-convict who is exonerated runs and wins that seat. And this Orleans parish is mainly the New Orleans area. This dude, Calvin Duncan, won by 68%. Oh, we can't have that. We can't have a black man who was in prison and then found out we fucked up and put him in prison. We can't have him running a court. So again, this shit happens all the time. If you're in Louisiana, if you're in New Orleans, especially, you need to be writing your local officials, state officials, federal officials. Yeah, this is unacceptable. This is very clearly, like racism. This is very much like, oh yeah, like pro incarceration. If you care about prison abolition, if you care about criminal reform, which funny enough, like a lot of Republicans, I think, are for criminal reform, but obviously not the ones in power because they get threatened by a guy who wins, who's actually been through the freaking tortures of American prisons, falsely accused and put there, found out the state of Louisiana was actually called out on their shit. So again, it's just covering their asses, and like it's just another case of like how it's the politicians and the rich people in power. They're the biggest snowflakes and will do anything they can to get their way. We need to stand up to this. He was rightfully elected, and this is clearly a way. The governor is trying to invalidate votes. That's all it is. I thought we were a democracy based on voting. Well, apparently not, according to the governor of Louisiana. Anyway, all right, sticking in the Deep South, there's a cool thing. I read this on the Associated Press. I kind of want to go now, but there's Hattiesburg Pocket Museum, or it's also called Mississippi's Tiniest Museum. So this is actually, I guess, like part of a dance hall or something. This couple had bought, and they have like little miniature statues and stuff placed all over. It's kind of a really cool concept, actually. And basically they made it a museum. And because all the little things are like super small, it's called the Pocket Museum, or Mississippi's Tiniest Museum. That sounds really cool. Honestly, I'm putting this on my list. So whenever I travel to Mississippi, I kind of want to go check this out. It sounds kind of cool. California charges 21 people in a hospice fraud case. Apparently these 21 people, committed like $250 million in fraud. Again, these are hospice patients. Like, I don't know. I cannot even comprehend the level of fucked upness that like someone would try to steal money from like people in hospice and their families. That's just, I don't know. Very icky, very icky. But good for the state of California. I'll keep an eye on this, see how this trial turns out. That was according to Associated Press. Here's another positive one. So the Salt River Project, which is actually the largest public power utility in the U.S. It's based in Phoenix. So it's like a public utility, right? It's an energy like company, but it's like a publicly owned one. Like actually in Nebraska, it's all public power. Like all the power is through this. So we would have to actually, voters, because I used to live in Nebraska, voters actually elected like the board, the people that sat on the boards of these utility companies, which is good. More direct democracy. I love it. But anyway, so they had elections recently, and I guess 8 of the 6, or there's 14 seats. 8 of those now are held by like very, I guess, progressive green energy, renewable energy people, which is good. This could be big. This could be a precedent setter. I'll keep track of this for you guys, but hopefully this will be a good trend that continues. So yeah, that was according to the Associated Press. Online sports betting was legalized in the state of Wisconsin. So if you're in the state of Wisconsin, now you can actually bet money on the Packers or the Brewers or any of those sports teams. That's according to the Associated Press. I talked about this before. Record level of oil production from West Texas, which has basically helped stabilize the U.S. Supply. That's from the Associated Press. Here's another kind of disappointing one, but it also reminds us of okay, we get these people in office. That doesn't mean we check out. We got to keep on these people all the time, because a lot of these self-professed leftists, and I'm a member of the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, but not all. I mean, DSA, there's a lot of great candidates and elected officials, but some of the biggest ones have been really letting us down lately. And we got to be on top of this. We got to keep the pressure up. This is one of my biggest issues with DSA, right? And again, I'm a member of DSA, holding elected officials accountable. We door knocked for you. We supported you. We voted for you for because of certain values and certain things you said you stood for. That doesn't change when you're in office, right? That it really doesn't, right? I understand there's things you can compromise on, but there's certain things, certain values that you don't. One of them for me is anti-imperialist, and the other is anti-capitalist. And if you're not gonna if you're gonna flip-flop in office, why the DSA of New York City hasn't revoked their endorsement of Mandami is just wild. Well, I know why, because it's all a power thing, but oh my gosh. Yeah. So anyway, let's see. And I've talked about this before. Let's see what else Mandani has done since he's in office. That's not too good. So Mandani steps back his campaign pledge to end the NYPD gang database. Also, he has stepped back he said he was going to end the NYPD gang database, and he was going to end the Strategic Response Unit, which is a special unit. Again, never trust fucking special units in police departments. But the Strategic Response Unit is a unit that's supposedly sent out during protests. Basically, it's a force, a unit that tramples your rights to protest and free speech. Mandani ran on abolishing both of those. Now he has stepped back and said, "Oh, we're not going to abolish it. I'm just going to control it better." This shit happens all the fucking time. Even from the people that we are most excited about and put in office, it's just look, you said you were going to get rid of this. You said you were going to lower NYPD numbers. Well, they're not staying lower. Mandani has said, no, we're just keeping it the same. So again, reneging on another campaign promise. It's just frustrating. And this is why we always have to stay skeptical. I understand campaigning is one thing, governing is another thing, but it's just dude, values are values, and honestly, this is why people are so dissatisfied, why all these men we talked about earlier and other people are so dissatisfied with the Democratic Party, because they don't have fucking values, or if they do, they try to hide them, or they come up with new different ways to try to justify, why I couldn't support this value right now. Dude, if the Democratic Party was just came out tomorrow and was just the majority of the members in Congress and whatnot were nope, we are bringing antitrust lawsuits, against all these tech companies, big companies. We're going to actually try to implement some socialist stuff. And we're also going to completely cut ties with Israel. They would win a fucking landslide. Seriously, the bar is not that fucking high. And that's what's so goddamn sad. It's just okay, when Republicans are able to are able to do basic things like no funding to Israel, and the Democrats can't even like fucking get the cojones to say, yeah, we should probably be for this too. It's just ridiculous. It really is. This is why elections matter. This is why primaries matter. We need to get these politicians out of office that like are milk toast, have no fucking values. Don't support marginalized people. Don't support the poor, the working class. This is again why the working class left the Democratic Party and are supporting Trump, because at least Trump fucking said like, I'm going to do something about it. Now we all know how much of a lie that was, how much like he didn't do jack shit about it, because he's a billionaire business owner. He's literally part of the Epstein class. So, but anyway, yeah, keep their feet to the fire. Again, I don't care, Republican, Democrat, whatever. Okay, almost done here. XAI, which is Elon Musk's AI company, the creators of Grok, who like turns teenage pictures of teenagers into porn. That AI company sues Colorado over a new AI regulation law that they passed. I haven't looked too much into this law. I'm going to have to look into it more. There's the little bit that I did see, there's some good stuff. There's also some like questionable stuff in it. So we'll see. They're going to court. Even the governor of Colorado, Democrat governor, when he signed this into law, he said it wasn't a perfect bill, which is like that shouldn't concern people at all. Right. Anyway, there were, so it's supposed to try to like control algorithms, and like particularly like different algorithms that like produce different types of speech. That's a little concerning. Anytime anybody says that, that's a little concerning, because that can be turned any which way. Again, this is the whole issue of like Trump may do something, Biden may do something like deporting immigrants, increase deportations. Trump is going to do the same thing. So this is always like the issue, right? You allow for one power grab to happen. What happens when the candidate you don't vote for gets into office? So that's kind of what's happening here partly. So those are kind of the one concerning part. A kind of positive part is that there's consumer protections. It basically makes it easier for people who use the internet, such as you and me, to get information on how algorithms work. Also making it easier to file complaints. So that part is good. The consumer protections part is good. And again, I would have to read more into this law. I'm sure we'll get more as this lawsuit progresses. That was according to the Financial Times. Kind of a sad thing. Again, like just because politicians are saying certain things, or in a party that like supports a lot of your views and stuff, doesn't mean you stop being critical of them. So President Sheinbaum, the same week she came out and said there's going to be universal health care in Mexico, also came out and said, oh, we're actually going to start doing fracking now in Mexico in order to produce our own fossil fuels, so we're less reliant on the U.S. The less reliant on U.S. oil is important, but like the way you do that, and especially Sheinbaum, who has her freaking like doctorate in like environmental science, like, yeah, again, very frustrating. It's like, okay, I get you don't want to be dependent on the U.S. I understand that. That's good. But like destroying your own environment to do that, like just not the move. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. That was according to that story was from the Financial Times. Excuse me. A big coffee shop chain in San Francisco called Phil's Coffee is removing all flags, which is so, of course, being in San Francisco, they had a lot of flags like pride flags, LGBT flags. And I guess the owner of this coffee branch is saying they're taking down all flags in order to be like accepting of all different types of customers. It's kind of like this one. It's kind of like the idea of, and this happens all the time. Businesses do this all the time, right? Of like trying to be neutral and trying to attract more customers by taking down things. Like that's just hurting your own like employees and customer base. Like neutrality, I don't know, like there's two views on neutrality, right? One is that like you don't advertise or support like anything, right? No flags, which is what this company is doing. The other form of neutrality is like you let everybody put up their stuff. I've always, because I've always loved diversity and like seeing different things. I kind of like the idea of like let people put it all up. Again, this turns into like, okay, what does tolerance mean? And like, do we tolerate like people, putting up pride flags and then also putting up like white supremacist stuff, like that's a whole nother, to me, that's like a whole nother argument that obviously wasn't the case here. Like a lot of the flags that I saw were either like pride flags or POW flags. So like, I don't know, nothing like too controversial, especially for the city of San Francisco, like the gay capital of the world, I don't know, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. That was according to Fox News. So Uber Eats has little delivery robots now. They launched it in Philadelphia like a month ago. And of course, like, I have friends that grew up in Philly and I know people from Philly and like, I don't know. I love people from Philly, but these people in Philly are like kicking these robots because they're moving so slow. Apparently these things move like, like 5 miles an hour or something, like super slow. So again, doesn't surprise me knowing people from Philly. It's kind of funny though. I kind of laughed when I saw that. So it's like, what do you expect? What do you expect? Okay, that's according to Fox News. Again, holding everybody's feet to the fire. Eric Swalwell, who was for a while, he was kind of big in the Democratic Party. I guess he's one of the many Democrats that's running in this, California governor primary. Apparently, he's been accused of sexual misconduct, sexual assault by various campaign staffers and various women that were not involved in politics at all. Of course, Fox News reported this, because they're trying to stick it to a Dem. Yeah, again, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, whatever. Like, sexual assault is not acceptable. Believe survivors. I hope this does get investigated. Honestly, I hope he does end up in court, And again, I don't give a fuck if he's a Democrat. Like, this is just like basic human values of like assault, sexual misconduct is not acceptable at all under any circumstances. So, if he has to drop out of politics, so be it. Okay. Some other news here. This was kind of funny. Like, again, sadly doesn't surprise me, but since October, the U.S. has let in about 5,000 refugees. All but 3 of these 5,000 refugees were white people from South Africa. And you've probably seen multiple things in the news about how like Trump is laying in all these victimized white South Africans. Yeah, the reason they're fucking victimized is because they're racist fucking assholes who literally believe that like South Africa should be an apartheid state, and or there should be a genocide on all Black South Africans. So again, again, this is empire supporting empire. This is white supremacy supporting white supremacy. So sadly, this doesn't surprise me. And again, just shows how fucked up the immigration is all around the world. Honestly. Okay, that was from the BBC. Almost done. The U.S. Postal Service has stopped giving pension contributions. So if you used to work for the Postal Service, you're not getting pension payments anymore. So that's wonderful. No idea how long this will last, but yeah, that sucks. One more reason why the USPS should be receiving government funding, but instead we keep trying to pull it away. Yeah. So if you're a former postal worker, man, mutual aid, we need to support people. We need to be like in the streets. This is why strikes are so important. Because this is unacceptable. That was from Reuters. This was another one that I thought was funny, but also not surprising to me, being in like gender research and stuff. So there is a nationwide shortage of estrogen patches. So like patches you can put on that you can get estrogen from. Most of the time, these estrogen patches are used for women going through menopause. It helps like relieve some of their symptoms and stuff. Well, recently the FDA has come out and said hormone replacement therapy is life-saving. No shit. We've been saying this in the trans community for a long time. Now, like actual cis women are finally realizing, oh shit, this is kind of important. And again, it's like you take away rights and resources from one person, from one group of people, it affects other groups of people. So if I hope this builds solidarity for cis and trans women, anybody, honestly, anybody that takes estrogen that needs it, because it is life-saving. It really is. It doesn't matter who you are. So apparently this mix of the FDA coming out and saying hormone replacement therapy is life-saving versus the low profit margins that companies get on making these estrogen patches is what's fueling the shortage. So basically the supply is going down while the demand is going up. So of course, this is going to happen. Apparently, according to the FDA, this is going to be a 2-3 year thing. So, it's like we do in the trans community. Like you got to stock up on your hormones, right? Anytime you can refill your estrogen, do it because there's shortages. We've been struggling with the same shit in the trans community for years. And yeah, again, solidarity, baby. We need to pressure these companies. This is why we need to get capitalism out of healthcare, because shit like this happens all the time, and we wonder why med prices are so crazy, so universal healthcare, solidarity. We need to be organizing around this. Women's healthcare is healthcare, like full period stop, that's according to Reuters. Almost done here. U.S. GDP only rose by 0.5% in Q4. So again, sluggish growth. This is due to various reasons: war in Iran, all different types of things. But yeah. So, and of course, where's most of that growth go? To the top 1% in our country, of course. That's from the Associated Press. Bill Ackman. He's a big like tech, rich dude. Basically, he tries to buy Universal Music, which is one of the big music studios that they have a lot of record deals with a lot of the biggest like artists in music right now. Bill Ackman basically tries to buy them up, just trying to create another monopoly. He has offered them $55 billion again, billion with a B, euros for this, according to the Financial Times. Private equity woes continue. Investors pulled $20 billion, again, billion with a B, dollars from private equity in quarter one. That's according to the Financial Times. Bissell steamer. So Bissell has these little handheld steamer things. Those have been recalled because people have been burnt from them. So if you have a Bissell steamer, be careful. See if your one is under the recall. That's according to Fox News. Okay, and then this is another issue that's been happening all across the country that I think needs more attention. So there was a study that was done. I think this may have been from MSNBC or MSN Now is what they're called. But there was a nationwide study that basically showed that property taxes are going up while home values are decreasing. This is obviously each jurisdiction is different, but like this is largely due to how municipalities do property taxes and how they don't always reflect the most recent numbers on the values of homes and property. Again, this is a nationwide thing. And I think also one of the big parts of this is that like a lot of municipalities, like local schools and stuff, this is the only way the biggest way they get money to operate is by raising property taxes. Well, you can only raise property taxes so much. This is why like diversification of the tax base matters so much. This is why local politics matters so much. Again, this is becoming honestly like a national crisis, I would say. Go to your local town council, ask them why the fuck are my property prices keep going up? Taxes going up while the values are going down. We need to hold people's feet to the fire, which then this also affects renters, right? Because like I'm a renter, my landlord's property taxes are going up, my rent goes up, every year. It's affecting all of us. Yeah, so that was basically it. The call to action today is learn more about men's issues, masculinity studies, talk to the men in your lives. Like, what are they, especially young men, what are they struggling with? Ask them like, why did you vote for Trump? Reaching, trying to build that solidarity, right? It's not between men, women. It's not between right, left. It's between the rich and the poor, honestly. And if the Democrats would like come out and say this and like actual campaign and govern on this, like they would win in a landslide. But anyway, all right, that's it. Enjoy your weekend. I will be back Monday. Peace.